Welcome back to the Womenomics Podcast. Think of this time as soul care with your hosts, Tiara and Corinne.
Hey y'all.
Wow. So, how you doing, Corinne? How has this week been for you?
I'm good. I'm loving this audio. I love it. I love
Yes.
it. Because you know why I love it? Not so much that we're not, visual, but I love it because after recording episode 1 of season 3, I feel like we're on the phone. And we have
Mm,
had enough hours on the phone, audio messages, talking about everything. And it includes all the topics that we talk about on the podcast. And it feels so natural. And it's just us having a conversation. And that's what people need to hear.
yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. I love that. And it's funny because I think I did it. I think I did it. But if you go back to our YouTube where you can watch season 1 and season 2, and eventually our season 3 will be there too, you can see that in season 1 when we have episodes by ourselves, it's like in a playlist called Soul Sisters.
Hmm.
And I love having guests and I love other people's perspectives, but we started this thing with phone conversations with me and you. So it does feel very nostalgic going back to our roots, like I'm here for.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I like it. Totally like
I love it. Well, this week, guys, we wanted to talk about money woes, really just the ups and the downs of financials as an entrepreneur. And I feel like this is such an important topic because I feel like, one, this is what really keeps people at a 9 to 5, right? Like,
right.
just literally just makes people like so super nervous about even thinking about entrepreneurship, even though we already know you can be a full-time employee, 9 to 5er, W-2 or whatever you claim it, you claim your set as, and also be an entrepreneur, whether it's part-time, whether it's full-time. And I think that us being so fearful of money and like holding on to money so tight and being afraid to lose it is what keeps us so stale and stagnant, and what keeps other people telling us what we're worth, what our value is, and how much someone is going to pay us.
Mm, yes. That's it right there. And I am literally in the midst of, I'll just call it a transformation
Mm,
between how I saw money prior to now and where I'm headed. And I feel like growing up, I'm sure a lot of families you hear as a kid, we can't afford that. That's too much money. It's almost a part of life. Like, kids reach for stuff in the store. That's too much. We can't afford it. That costs way too much. And so you get that
mm-hmm.
messaging, whether you can or can't afford it. And so that becomes a part of like what you think is being responsible. Not being able to afford something and then not getting it, or teaching that to your children, like how, you shouldn't ask for that. It's too much money, or that's ridiculous. And so then you grow up and you learn it's important to have a certain level of security, because you don't want to be homeless. You want to be able to take care of yourself and your kids. And so
Mm-hmm.
you get an education, you get a secure job, and you keep that job, and none of those things are wrong. It's not the wrong messaging, but what it does, it can send the wrong it can create an unhealthy relationship with money when you don't have issues of limitation.
Mm.
So it limits your ability to expand, at least for me. So I've come from very humble beginnings. And yeah, my mother wasn't saying we couldn't afford it because that was the right thing to say. It's because we couldn't. We couldn't, we didn't have it. And so, it was my goal to get a good job, but first, get a good education, before that, get a good scholarship, because I'm not taking that
Mm-hmm.
alone. And then get a secure job. So now where I am as an entrepreneur, there is not something called a secure job or that guaranteed paycheck anymore. I, eat what I kill. And so that is
Mm-hmm.
very, very different. And so many things come with that, especially money and pricing, and looking at your bank account when it's a lot of money, looking at it when it's no money, and
Yeah.
still trying to be consistent to be successful. That will take you down to the ground.
Okay.
To the ground. And and so I feel like the biggest battle is not so much how can I retain my customers? How can I have a winning product? How can I sell better? it's really for me about how do I feel about it? Because
Mm.
everything else follows. What I do, what I think, what I say, the decisions that I make, it really follows how I feel about it. And so that's part of the transformation that I'm in. You know, I niche down to the business that I run now, and it can command very high rates, and I could create and grow a very lucrative business. But there's a mismatch at times with what I think I'm worth, my time is worth, what I think I can be paid versus what people are willing to pay me. And
Mm.
so I started off having very high prices, thinking I could somehow circumvent those values that I had for so long. And what it ended up doing is I got less customers because I had inflated my prices because I want to command what I'm worth. But
Right.
I still wasn't sure. I still
Mm.
didn't think I was. So it's so interesting how how most of us will have lower prices because we feel like we got to earn our stripes to charge more, and we limit ourselves or whatever. What I did is charge very high prices, and I got a lot of calls, and my customers would be like, "Oh, that's too much." And I'm like, well, that's what I'm worth. So find someone else. Enough of those calls, I started to add up what it would have been if my price was different. Not devaluing myself, but really getting clear on fair exchange. And so once I adjusted my prices, even though they were still very good, I got more business and I started to see more money flowing into my business bank account. And I started to look at that money and think, am I worth this? Should I have this? What if I
Mm.
lose this? What if I don't get this again? So it's like your relationship with money shows up in unexpected places
That is so true.
during the highs and the lows.
That's interesting. You just took me on a ride because you started off with your childhood, so it made me start thinking about my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went into, finally niching down and recognizing that you're in a very profitable niche or, industry and, trying to find a way to what's the word I'm looking for, not elevate that but leverage it, trying to find a way to leverage it in order to create the life that you want, realizing that that's not great for your marketplace or your customer base, and making that adjustment to still get to that place, but not so much so as per transaction.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. So I would say for me, it was a little bit opposite. And I think it's because, again, going back to your childhood, I came from a childhood where I was considered middle class. My parents always worked. We had our own home, but I didn't really hear no so much as a child, or like we can't afford that so much as a child. Maybe because I'm basic. I wasn't asking. I wasn't asking for too much.
Not that.
Or say not maybe I was just like, I just go give me some peanut chews and I'm good. It's like, but I will say that I would get things like at a later time, so it would be like not right now, but it would just come later. And I think for me, if I'm being 100% transparent, it created a level of comfortability, whereas when you're kind of in a more place of scarcity, sometimes your dreams, your visions, it makes you dream about more abundance. I don't think that I ever dreamed about more abundance. I think I've always been comfortable. And so I've like lived and kind of found my own way to thrive in this place of complacency. So coming into entrepreneurship, when people tell me I charge too low, it makes me nervous. You
Why?
could tell, and that is a good question. That is a very good question because I do not have an answer for you, right? Outside of, I know pretty much what my value is. I know what I brought, in the notary world. I know what I bring in the wedding officiant world. I know that I take that additional time to do the education. I attend webinars. I pay for coaching. I do all of those additional things to add on to my skill set. I know that I can teach others. That's why I started the Wedding Officiant Academy, because I can process information and bring it to someone, and when they do it, it makes them money. I recognize all of those things. Those are all perceived value that people would pay for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because I just don't think in a place of abundance. I'm not rooted to think in a place of abundance. I don't. So I'm okay making, a little bit less than what I should be charging because I'm just used to that comfortable, like, middle place. I don't even dream about, like, really big, like, oh, I want this, like, 8-figure business or 7-figure business. Like, when people say, like, dream for the, what is it? Reach for the stars and you'll land on the clouds or something like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think about the clouds. I'm not even thinking about the stars, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so when people challenge me and be like, you do so much, you can add so much, and you can be compensated for all that you add, and people want to actually compensate you for that. That's why there's wedding officiants out here making 2,500 per wedding, or 1,500 per wedding, or $1,000 per wedding. So it's not that people won't pay for it. They will. They understand the value. It's just about you feeling comfortable being paid that, like, much.
So
And
let me
for
ask
some
you
reason I still struggle with that.
so what okay, so if you didn't think of abundance in this sense, right?
Hmm.
And then why choose a lower price? Is it just random? You're comfortable with choosing charging less because you don't have a need for more? Like why the price? Why did you set the price where it is? What's the reasoning behind it?
Well, one, honestly, I went scientific. So I did market research. I looked at what people in my area were charging, how long they've been doing it, how many reviews they had. I went to a couple different sites, did this, and I just created an average.
Okay.
And so it was all very, like, analytical, or scientific. Like, I just went that route because it's at least for wedding officiants, it's so wide,
Mm.
right? It's so wide. And that's why some people are making, like I said, over $1,000 for one ceremony, whereas some people are only charging 100 or 125.
Mm. Wow.
Like, huge ranges, right? And at the end of the day, there's always going to be people at different economic levels.
That's right.
There's going to be those people that cannot afford that $1,000 efficient, even if they wanted to with all their heart and mind. You know what I'm saying? It's just not in their budget. They cannot see or move around the finances for it with everything else that they have to do.
Mm.
There's some people who are like, oh, you cost $1,000, no problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
Because
true.
even for me, when I went to before, if you wanted a wedding with a ceremony, it would be 500. Then I went up to 750. Going up to 750 was scary. It's a $250 jump, and I'm still, within my first year, but I've gained a lot of knowledge. I feel comfortable doing it. I can run a rehearsal. You know what I'm saying? All these additional things. The feedback from my couples is great, and these are all of these, like, check marks to let you know, okay, it's time to raise your prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still nervous as hell.
So, what's your fear around raising your prices? What do you think? What's the worst case scenario?
You just don't think people gonna pay. You're gonna be like, oh, you too expensive, and they're gonna, go to that next person who is a little bit cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a genuine fear that everybody has. It's like,
Yes.
okay, they're gonna tell me that I'm too expensive, and they're gonna go to my competitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sold it for the first time, I was talking to my couple, and they were like, okay, well, what's the difference between this middle package, which is 500, and this package, which is 750? It's a $250 difference here. And when I look at your price sheet, the only difference is that rehearsal. So it costs $250 for you to attend my rehearsal, right? And the answer is yes. And here's why. I'm spending time with you at the rehearsal. I'm driving to the rehearsal space and from the rehearsal space. So that's the additional $250. But I could not tell her that, right? She
Right.
like, I don't give a damn that you driving there and driving back. Like, I could just not pay for that. No, the importance of having your officiant at your rehearsal is that we can practice this. We go over these little cues. We try to handle these, like, nuances, so that when we get to the altar on your wedding day, everybody knows where their place is. Everybody knows their cues. We have these little transitions in place because we practice, and practice makes perfect. Okay, you got that. I want my day to be perfect. So if you're telling me all these additional things that I did not consider to
Mm-hmm.
even do at the rehearsal, then you got that. Like, now I understand why I need you there. And so once I sold it the first time, then it's like, okay, you can keep selling it. And so I've sold it a couple more times after that, but now people, my mentor is telling me that I'm still too low. I was struggling at 750 and you're telling me I'm
Whoa.
still too low. But if
It's the
people will
elevation.
pay 750, they'll pay $1,000. What's another 250? They'll pay the $1,000. And that's just when your market starts to shift. You as a business owner have to acknowledge when your market starts to shift, or you will stagnate yourself to stay in that lower range market. So yes, I can say with the DIY brides, or the people who want to have their weddings in their backyard, who just have a more conservative budget, or I can lean into where I'm naturally being pushed along to, which is couples who can afford to pay $1,000 for their officiant. So what you want to go against the current, or you want to go with the current? Like which one is it? And I feel like that's the transition I'm at. You want to go against the current, you want to go with the current. People are willing to pay you more. You have communicated your value enough for people to feel comfortable paying you more. So why would you not raise your prices in order to keep along? So now it's like I only need to book maybe 5 weddings a month to make my, whatever my quota, whereas before I needed to book 10.
That's right. And I think if you wanted to keep your prices low to accommodate a specific market that you want to stay in, then you got to up your volume. And if you get tired enough, you can be like, okay, well, maybe that's not going
Right.
to move.
Yes.
But I also think, like, when we raise our prices, we can't do that without the value. So we can't just
Exactly.
be out here, and people do it all the time, arbitrarily just raising the prices and assuming that that's just what the market will command because we just want to make more money. I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Bruce, New Skills, New You, but what I heard before was when value is present, price is not an issue. And
Yes.
so you could have told her, yes, it's a $250 difference. And yes, I'm going to drive to and from the reception, and the rehearsal, and we're going to go over it. But you sold it very different. You sold the value of it. So technically, it's invaluable that they practice so that wedding is flawless and will, surpass their dreams. So it's all in how you sell things. And for me, I had very high prices in the beginning, but I couldn't explain why it was so valuable for that price. And so when I made the adjustment, I embody my prices now. I understand them. They make sense to me, and I sell very well, like why it is priced this way. Because people shop around and they say, well, why is it higher? I call someone else and it's this price. And
Yep.
I will let them know, even if I'm offering the same service, they're not offering it like me. And here's what I offer you. And then I start going down all their pain points that they do not have to have, because they're going to pay me this fee, and this is what I can ensure that they will experience. It makes the difference. And what that
Yep.
does for us is it helps us be okay with what we price. And
Yep.
and if you want to continue to get paid more, you have to remain innovative and creative and always think of what more value can I give the marketplace. We don't know. I was very selfish. I'm like, I just want to pay my mortgage. That is the goal here. But no one wants to pay my mortgage. People want
Right.
me to give them value. And so when I kind of made that shift and start focusing on what was important to my customers and really enjoying that journey with them, the money started to come,
Yeah.
even though I had lowered my prices. So it's kind of like we're on opposite ends of it, but it's still the same experience of adjusting ourselves to money, because that is how it's going to keep flowing.
That is so true. And it's like, it's adjusting yourself to money. It is revisiting and evaluating and changing, if necessary, your relationship with money. And I feel like, that's kind of just where I am right now. Like my relationship with money has never been necessarily bad, but I can always make better decisions and I can always understand money a little bit better. But I think to your point is understanding the value that you bring makes you more confident about the charge that you are requesting from whoever is seeking out your services. I already know I can solve your problem. There's a whole bunch of people that can solve your problem. There's people that can read from a script, a piece of paper. There's people who can fill out paperwork that tells you write this here, write this here, write this
Mm-hmm.
here, right? But it's different when it's like, okay, but I work with you beforehand in these 3 meetings. This is what we go through. This is what my process is. This is what's going to happen the day of. This is what's going to happen the day after. This is how you're going to know that all of this is done. And you're spelling that out to them in the first meeting, because that first impression is super important. But as a business owner, it's the most important, because it's the first time that they engage with your business, with your brand. And that's super important because, like you said, behind the business is the business owner, is the service provider, is the product, designer.
Mm.
And so that's a whole person, by itself, by ourselves or whatever. So for me, it's just super important to understand, what value do you bring to whoever is buying your services or buying your products, and putting like a dollar amount to that. And I think that also feels weird too, because if you ask them, like, people be like, oh, how much do you feel like such and such is worth? And it's like, not really about that. It's kind of like, how much do you feel like you should be making an hour? Because I feel like if we take the dramatics away from our business, right, and
Mm.
really break it down to, it is about selling our intellectual abilities or knowledge, or monetizing our genius. Like, that's really all business ownership is. It's
Mm.
about monetizing your genius.
Mhm.
So it's like, how much do you want to make for your genius? Like, how do you want to think about it? As an hourly rate? Is it like a project rate where you do these, certain tasks, and this is the price that's like associated with it? Like, I'm actually starting to think about mine in an hourly rate. Like, I know that I want to make $100 an hour.
Mhm. Yep. That's how I do as well. I decided, um, just learning through my mentor, what my number is. And that's based on my expenses. That's based on where I want to expand. That's based on so many other factors. And then matching some value to that number. And
Yep.
because if you look left and right and constantly just look at what your competitors are charging, you don't know what's going on in their business and why they charge what they charge. It may not
Yep.
just because they're trying to just get to the money, that they're whoever they work with may be more expensive in terms of the fees that they charge. I mean, they pay within their business. So their operating costs could be different. And you can't just match what other people are doing. What you do is you figure out what your number is, you figure out what problem you're solving in the market, and you be able to sell that very well to the clients that find you. I just can't see how you can miss, but you miss if you're not willing to be flexible and readjust over time. So if
Yep.
I just stayed married to those high prices that I had, I would be sitting here, phone not ringing, not understanding why people don't value me, but I have to value what I'm offering and making sure that it's a match to what people need. And that has been the biggest shift for me. And then now it's
Mm.
kind of like I'm making money. I feel like I'm hitting a new milestone in my business. And now I'm like, oh Lord, I hope I can maintain this. So we got to be careful with those little fear, because it's like you're afraid because you don't have the money. And then you
Right.
start getting the money. You're scared you're going to lose the money. It's like, when
Yep.
am I ever going to be free? But I just keep going and recenter myself with my faith, understanding that I just did not get here by my wisdom and experience alone. I
Hmm.
trust and believe that God is going to take me through challenges, ups and downs, to strengthen and refine me, and that helps strengthen and recenter is like my perspective of things. And I just get up and live to dare to live another day and just do the best I can, even though it's so much uncertainty. And that's just the nature of being an entrepreneur.
I mean, yeah, you pretty much you summed that up beautifully. For me, it's like, I'm just here for the pivot, right? I'm here for making things make sense. When I enter entrepreneurship, I started out as a mobile notary, and my whole plan was to go into the whole real estate side, because that seemingly was the most lucrative in the notary industry. And for anybody who listens to this, if this is like your first time listening to us, go back to season 1, season 2. But we both are notaries, and we started off in the real estate, notary loan signing agent side. We met in a mentorship group that was literally for training to become a loan signing agent. So grateful for the path, right? Because if we didn't take that path, we wouldn't have met each other.
Right.
But we're so far away from that now, to where your niche is different, my niche is different. We started off with the same niche trying to learn it. Now we're at two different niches respectfully and like thriving in our career. So it's just something about being able to recognize a pivot if like things don't really make sense to you, or it's not making you the money that you feel like you should be making. I mean, you also have to put in the energy effort, right? But
Mm-hmm.
besides that, understanding that like sometimes you're not getting where you need to go or where you think you should be going because your heart is not really in it. You're in it to like chase that dollar.
That's right.
And that's like, yeah, like that's nice and all, but I feel like you don't start making the money that you truly deserve or are valued at or want to make until you get a job where your heart is in it, or you get a career where your heart is in it, because you're not going to want to do the necessary things that it takes to get there if your heart not in it. That's just the
So
reality.
that's so true. And my takeaway, like I had another takeaway, but my takeaway from this episode is, if your heart is not in it and you are not passionate about the service you're providing, the business that you have built or still building, then you're not going to last long when you have a drought. when
Mm.
when your outcomes are not coming and you're sitting here trying to figure out what's next or where's the money, and you decide to pivot again or chase the next shiny thing, you're literally not going to make it. And what I've discovered is not like trying to get to this glorious moment when the money just coming in nonstop, is overflowing, the buckets is just pouring. Like that happens, and then the rain, and then all the money stops. And that's part of business. I didn't know that. I thought that meant like, oh, it's over. I failed. Now I got to figure out something else. Let me get another stream of income. But it's not about that. It's about readjusting. So, like my mentor told me, when it's quiet, that means your phone not ringing. You sit and you research. You sit and you see what processes you can refine. You look at your money, you look at your expenses, you make adjustments. So there's opportunity in every season. And when you stop looking at the money and counting it and worrying about it, and you start worrying about the things that generate it, including your passion and your joy in it, then it has it continues on the cycle of coming. And
Mm.
so if somebody had told me that a long time ago, that it comes with the loss too, I would be like, nah, that ain't for me. I need consistency. But it's just made me a better person completely, because I can like tough out things a lot better. So
Mm.
without having money at times, or without having large invoices, it can feel very scary, because I've spent all of my life expecting consistency, security with a job. And then I decided only a few years ago that I am going to literally go out here, create value, and be compensated for it. And that is going to sustain my household, my children, the roof over my head, everything. And I'm going to do this forever. That can be very, very scary. But at the same time, it requires a lot of faith and a lot of belief in what you're doing. And I believe in what I'm doing. And I just have to remind myself of that and be prepared for the times when you're not getting that same amount of money, because the limitless potential with business, oh, it surpasses a job. And
Yeah,
that's what makes it worth it for me.
absolutely.
Mhm.
No, absolutely. And yeah, just a little tidbit for sticking out the lows is just acknowledging that the lows are going to come. And that's why you need to diversify. And so when I entered in the notary space, I came in with the idea of like, okay, diversify my stamp, diversify my stamp. What other ways, what other niches in the notary industry that, need a stamp? What other documents like those are, I need to not just focus on loan signings. I got into estate plans and understanding how to do trust and power of attorneys and things of that nature. So now I'm very confident with that. I got into officiating. I took some trainings. I did a lot of research on my own. And now I'm extremely comfortable with that. And so now when my phone rings, it can be for either of those three. Now I have three different, ways that I can put out money. So if my wedding business is not pumping out how I want it to, then I can pick up on my notary things. And I also sell sea moss. Like, I think that's the really cool thing about entrepreneurship is like you have all this money coming from like all these different ways that not all the faucets have to be on at the same time.
Right, right, right. And you can also be prepared to invest in new ventures. So the business that you have now could very much be a foundational business. And
Right.
as you can use your creativity and the more you learn just as a business owner, you can say, hey, I want to start building another business. And as you build out that business, the money that flows into your current business, you can start putting pockets aside to build another business. I think that's what true business ownership is, because industries change, seasons change, and then while you're building something new and you're running your current business, you can have a second business that you can fold into. So it's so many ways to look at how you generate money, what you do with the money, and how you can continue it, not just hoping that customers constantly are at your door. It's what you do with it. And that's why I don't do the ghetto fabulous thing. When I get a big invoice, I go party because it don't that paycheck ain't coming every 2 weeks like at my good government job.
Right.
So how I look at it, how I treat money is very, very different, because every dime that comes into my house, I earn that. I
Right.
earned it. So I treat it like precious cargo, because I want to be able to sustain the challenging times as well as reinvest in the future.
I will also have to say this though. One thing that I truly love about entrepreneurship and just the idea of funding your own way is that your level of creativity gets tapped,
Mm,
right? So you can like lean into it. And I feel like when you lean into your level of creativity, it almost like it like peaks, right? It like starts to bud and then it starts to bloom. And now you have all these amazing ideas that you can add in to your business that'll also create additional revenue. And so shout out to Sophia Martin. We already know.
mm,
Um, that is our girl. Go watch our interview with her. But she taught us in our mentorship group, in all of her social media, is that you need to have like multiple streams of income from like one business, right? So, and and she can tell her own story, but like in her notary business, it's like notary. She also has education on YouTube. At one point in time, she had a mentorship group. She's taking all of her notary money and education and learning about real estate. And you know what I'm saying? Like now she's a landlord. So that's like additional, money that's coming in from her just starting her notary business. And the same thing with me and officiating. It's like, okay, now I have arches that I can rent. Now I can, save that money to get an event space that I can host weddings at, or I can start a Facebook group and, monetize that, or I can do bridal shows, or, my officiating business, I can write a book, I can do a planner. Like it's so much that you can add into just this officiant business that can create additional revenue for you that you probably would have never even thought about if you didn't tap into that level of creativity. And it's
mm,
like, how can I expand in this place that I'm super knowledgeable at? Okay, I'm so knowledgeable that I recognize that I keep my couples or my clients keep coming across these couple of problems. How can I help alleviate these couple of problems?
mm-hmm.
Simple, you know, and I'm not
Yep.
simple, but it really is like it just takes like a couple of some thought and just some ideas and just really like having that crazy belief of self that you can create this additional product or this service or create a partnership with someone or be an affiliate. Like come on, let me
Mhm.
tell you,
Yeah.
talk to me about some entrepreneurship, okay?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, and be willing to run those plays and be
Yeah,
okay if it doesn't work out. Like
yeah,
like every play is not going to be the winning ticket. Like it's
yeah,
okay. And that's the part when no one likes to talk about. You have a venture, an idea, and then it doesn't work out. So you may feel ashamed about it, or you don't even try. So
yeah.
it's kind of like, test the market, try something new, because it could be the greatest thing yet, or it could be like, nah, that ain't it, boo. But now you know. So
Mhm.
it's just so important to just run it, see what happens, and keep going. Like, don't quit. And all of that sounds so cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. People say it
Mhm.
all the time because it's true.
Yes, that is so true. So, yes, we just want to encourage you. Do not let the money woes of entrepreneurship, create fear, um, and just put you in a place to think, like, I don't know if it's worth it. I'm afraid of the security. Be secure, however, secure, if that's multiple jobs, if that's keeping your 9 to 5. Even my friend, love her to death, she started her own practice. She is a licensed social worker and clinical social worker, and she also does consulting. Like, and
Hmm.
I know that's right, because entrepreneurship don't look the same for everybody. Like, she's still
That's right.
generating her own, income. She's not locked down in traditional 9 to 5. She has like a contract based employment right now, but really what's funding her and her
That's right.
being able to be comfortable to make whatever decisions that she wants to. So I love that. And like, do not let the money goes is going to come. It's going to be uphill battles. It's going to be, slower, lower days, but there are opportunities out here that surpass the fixed income a lot of us experience with employment. So if you on that 6-figure track and you see yourself keep going up, I feel you. But if you want to do something, for yourself to give to somebody else, because that's another thing that entrepreneurship grants you that having a good old government job don't. You can't get that job to your son,
There
but you
you
can pass
go.
that business down. You feel
That's
me?
that's
So
it. That's it right there.
that is my little spiel. That's my little moments of encouragement. But
Yeah.
we just thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Womenomics. Happy Womenomics Wednesday, and we wish y'all the best.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.